In this video, I'm going to talk about the biological roots of aggression, but before I do that, a definition for aggression: any act intended to harm someone physically or emotionally. Remember, there's a gender difference there. Men are more likely to be physically aggressive. Women add a little bit more of that relational, emotional aggression in. So both of these fall into aggression. And again, genetics, biochemical factors, and neural factors can all be biological reasons for aggression. First, genetics. We know that there's a genetic component for two reasons. One is that certain animals are more aggressive, or, for example, certain breeds of dogs. So you can breed aggression, which would be a genetic component. We also know genetics plays a part through twin studies. So identical twins, same genes. If one twin claims to have a bad temper, to be more aggressive, it's significantly more likely the other twin is also going to claim to have a bad temper. So there is a genetic component. In biochemical terms, there's two factors. One is testosterone, and the other is alcohol. So we'll break this down. First, testosterone. If you have higher than normal levels of testosterone in your system, you're more likely to do drugs, you're more likely to be a delinquent, you're more likely to respond to frustration with an aggressive bullying response, and we'll talk about the frustration-aggression link further. All of those things increase aggression connected to testosterone. So the more testosterone, the more aggressive you are in a plethora of ways. For alcohol, it's not too much of a shocker to know that alcohol and aggression go hand in hand. Higher aggression levels mean that you are more likely to drink. When you are drinking, you are more likely to be violent, to be aggressive. Over 50% of the murders in the US are alcohol related, so alcohol plays a significant part in a lot of aggressive behavior. In neurological terms, there are two parts of the brain that you should know about: the frontal lobe and the amygdala. So I'll start with the frontal lobe. For the frontal lobe, if you have reduced activity in that frontal lobe, or if your frontal lobe is underdeveloped or not fully developed, you're more aggressive. If you remember from chapter 2, the frontal lobe is in charge of things like planning, judgment, thinking through your actions, thinking about consequences. That's the part that's not fully developed until your early 20s. And so if you're not able to fully think through the consequences of your actions, to fully plan things out, you're more likely to do something aggressive. If there's damage to your frontal lobe, that can also possibly increase aggression. For the amygdala, it's a little different. If you remember from chapter 2 and chapter 7 and chapter 11 as well, the amygdala is connected to fear. If your amygdala is active, that is connected to the fear response. And so if you have an overactive amygdala, you are more aggressive. You can think of it as going back to that fight or flight response. If your amygdala is activated and you're in that frightened state, you're more likely to act out as a means of survival. So an overactive amygdala or an underactive frontal lobe are both connected to increased aggression rates. So there's a genetic component, there's a biochemical component, specifically with testosterone and alcohol, and there's a neural component specifically with the frontal lobe and the amygdala. And those are the biological roots of aggression. There's also several psychological ones that we'll talk about in class.